Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to NickTalks. Glad to have you. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, all right. Any updates? Nothing crazy that I can think of. Just plugging away on here, baby. Hoping to get the house in the next year. Hopefully by the end of this one, but we'll see. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it, dog. In terms of exciting news, anyways. Yeah, plugging away at the book little by little. But I may have something to say about that at the end if we have time. But let me just. And only work on that. Cool. Sorry. Cool. All right. So now that I have successfully taken at least 45 seconds of your time, I will jump right into numero uno here that I actually stole. I was writing scripts the other night, and I just look over and I have all my, just junk going all the way up the wall pretty much for, ideas that pop into my head, things for videos, stuff for me, ideas, random facts that I want to keep in my mind and whatnot, lists of all sorts, projects that I'm working on and such. But actually the first two of these were just things that I had written up here that seemed, hey, I actually could do a video about that. Sweet. So the first one being, through repetition, you speak directly to the subconscious. Now, off the rip, this may seem a little bit like we're stepping into tinfoil hat territory, of which I do love to spend time there, but I don't think that it is good for the content that I'm making here just yet. Maybe at some point we can get more into my beliefs on how reality works, but not today and not anytime soon. So, as I said, through repetition, you speak directly to the subconscious. And what this means is behavioral changes, mostly, right? So anything that you want to change behavior-wise can be changed 100%. Even down to the most minute detail, you can change absolutely. But depending on how long that habit has been within the system, it's going to take time to rewrite. And the best way to rewrite a habit is through repetition of the new habit. Now, this can also work with personal attributes. Now, there's really no way to get around this without seeming a little, but I'm going to go into it anyways because it's true, and I've shared it with many people and haven't had anyone call me insane. Yeah, we'll do that. But first, I think the behavioral aspect is what's more important, because a lot of behaviors, or behavior as it is really what is usually at the forefront of the desire for change, right? I have to change these behaviors. These behaviors are not serving me. These systems are not creating the success that I want in my life, and therefore I have to change it. So, to really get into the wiring of who you are and make changes, you do this through repetition of the action and repetition of thoughts about the new habit that you want to have. So continuously reinforcing what you want to have happen kind of rewires your neural connections and neural pathways to accept the new over the old. So once your repetition has become greater than the repetition of a existing habit, then you will now slowly start to exist as that thing, right? And this, takes time, obviously, but is not that hard. You just got to remember to keep plugging it away. I feel like since I'm talking in the abstract here, it's not really driving it home, but I guess. So my personal anecdote with getting into the wiring and speaking to the subconscious, so to say, is memory. Pretty much most of my young adult life or adolescent life, I had horrible memory, like to the point where I couldn't remember things that had happened 2 weeks ago, right? Like I would have friends saying, "Oh, remember when this thing happened? That was so funny. That was so crazy." And I'd be like, "What the heck are you talking about, dude? Just no memory." And they're like, "What do you? It literally just happened. How can you not remember what happened?" And it was so crazy. And I'll just say, "No clue, dude. I just don't remember it. I don't remember it." And this is like, not like I was smoking a ton of weed or anything. Just I think that there was some confirmation feedback loops happening where I would forget something and then I would be astonished that I forgot it, and then I'd be down on myself, and then I would say, "Oh, I have terrible memory," and I would communicate that to other people, so it became an existing belief that tainted the system with reality, So I continuously said and thought and acted as though I have bad memory, and then I had horrible memory as a result. And so when I want to say 2021, I was finally like, man, I wonder if it's just, this is probably like I'd started learning about like how to become better and how to optimize your life and and changing your story and things like that. And I was like, I wonder if I could change my patterns of memory by just telling myself a different story. And so I did. I just started thinking and sometimes saying out loud to myself, "I have great memory. I have great memory. My memory is great. My memory is awesome. I have awesome memory." Continuously for, a few days to a few weeks. And to my complete surprise, within a couple weeks, my memory was fantastic. I was remembering details sharper and more vividly than I ever had before. And fewer and fewer were the times that people would exclaim, "Oh, you don't remember that? You don't remember that?" It just started to slowly go away. And since that change, it has continued to get confirmed and reaffirmed over time. And now I have fucking outstanding memory with most things, to the point where sometimes I'm even shocked by how good it is. And it just, I have to call back to only a few short years ago where my memory was terrible. It was continuously terrible, and it's pretty astonishing that that can change. But that's truth right there. Obviously we're evidence based here. If it isn't tested, then we can't be sure that it's true. And I have tested this, and I have experienced it, and it has completely blown my ass out of the water. So I think that there is something to that, and I'm sure that you could import that on any behavior that you have. I guess I could also use the example of money. Always been horrible at managing money. Always been horrible. And this isn't so much as like me telling myself, "Oh, I'm good at money. I'm good at money. I'm good at money now." No, I didn't do that. But instead, I just, luckily, I had someone kind of show me a system that made sense to me on how to track finances in a comprehensive way. And I took that system and I kind of twisted it and made it my own. I built my own spreadsheet layout that I've been using for probably more than a year now. And since I'm consistently using it, I have now completely changed my relationship with money. And I'm honestly pretty good about it now. Like, I can't remember the last time, that I had a real issue where I spent too much, or I was not accountable with tracking, or any of these things. Obviously in the beginning, and the first few months of me using it, and then I'd be good, and then a couple months later, like there was spotty times where I wasn't doing great, or like I'd have like 2 weeks where I didn't record anything, and then I'd have to backlog everything, and that's always a pain. But at this point, because of the continuous repetition, like I come in here every single night after work, and I record my tips, and I plug it all through, and I record any expenses, and I filter it all through the system, and it stays locked in. And now I've actually, I've tweaked it slowly. It included more boxes and more tools over time since I've been using it to help me even more. Now I have a verification system, which is literally just a box of check marks next to all of the finance sheets, so I can do a total addition of all of my boxes, and that total number should be exactly what is in my bank account, or exactly what is in my bank account plus the cash that's in hand. And if it's accurate and it all lines up and everything's correct, then I check it off. And if it's not, then I, do some equalization and figure it out. But the point being is that that was a horrible habit, or rather a habit that I was unhappy with, and by continuously, repetitively doing the right behavior, slowly over time, it just became part of the system. So your subconscious obviously governs all of the day-to-day tasks that you don't necessarily think about doing. You just do them. They're just part of who you are, right? Like if you constantly quote movie lines, that's part of you, right? It's part of the system, and you just do that. If you remember all the lyrics to songs, that's just part of you because you do it all the time, right? You don't have to try to do that, but it is consistently reaffirmed through your repetition. Your repetitive actions are digging that deeper, deeper, deeper into your mind. So, if you just think about it on the other end of the spectrum, you can make changes just by, doing the opposite thing or correcting the behavior and then really plugging away. Now, obviously, this is difficult to begin with, right? I'm like, you could probably port this over to something like smoking or a drug habit or something like that. And the habit exists of, I smoke, 3 cigarettes when I'm at work, right? And then 1 when I get home. And that's been the habit for months and months to years. And, it's going to take some time to break that habit. You don't break habits, in a day. But over time, it will become part of the system to the point where you'll just forget that it was even a thing until you try to remember. Oh yeah, remember I used to freaking do this crazy thing? Remember I used to act like that? Remember I used to be that, right? So this, I think, it's a good thing to include when talking about, last episode we talked about character creation and really digging into the nuts and bolts of who you are. Not quite to the extent that I would have liked, but maybe in a future video we can get back into it. But when you are building the life that you want and becoming the person that you wish that you were, you're gonna have to do this no matter what. You're gonna have to get into, as I say, you're gonna have to get lost in the wiring of your system and reprogram the things that aren't meant to be there. And it is necessary, but if you do it intentionally, and if you, instead of just doing it accidentally, we talk about accidental success all the time, obviously. But instead of doing it accidentally, if you hop on the intentional side and you really just think, okay, what are some habits that I could do without? Obviously, don't do 10 at once because then you're going to falter. But if you just pick 1, 2, 3 habits that you really don't like, think of a corrective behavior or something that would be on the positive end of that spectrum of behavior, and then just slowly move towards that, and then stay consistent. You fall off, it's okay, it happens, hop right back on. As we say, it's not about, falling off, it's about how quick you get back on the horse, right? So you take that into consideration, and you plug and plug and plug away, and within 3 to 6 months to maybe a year, depending on how long you've been engaged in this other habit, you'll be right as the mail, baby. Now, this is not a complete safeguard against relapse, right? Evidence shows pretty conclusively that, even dipping your toes back into an old behavior for a short period of time is, your brain still has those neural pathways that exist, that have existed for years and years and years, and they're not gone, they're just not being used. It's kind of like, the way I think of it is roads. Your mind is constantly building new roads and, more efficient roads to new behaviors, and the more you walk down those roads, the better they get, the more efficient they become. And there may be behaviors that are the roads to behaviors that are pre-existing that you haven't used in years, but those roads still exist, and you start walking down it and it's real easy to get that mud off the road, and then suddenly it's the same pathway that it was. So you got to be careful with that and ever vigilant, but it can be done. It can be done. And I think, for me anyways, it's pretty empowering to know that whatever exists in my mind that is not the way that I would like it to be or is not perfect yet, I can change it. And it may take time, but with persistence and continuously acting upon what I really want to have happen, I can completely change myself for the better to be the person that I wish that I was, right? Right. And kind of in the same vein, smooth transition over to number 2, is whatever or wherever you are struggling, there is a program that keeps it that way. And you have to learn to reprogram it. Now, this kind of falls similarly to the episode that I did on rewriting the sins of your father, right? The sins of your parents, those before you, people who have imprinted upon you the behaviors that exist within you now, whether you know it or not. And there are everything is programming. Everything is programming. All your behaviors are programmed. Everything. It just comes from the world around you. It comes from the world within you. It comes from everywhere, right? Every person you meet imprints a little bit of something, some more than others, and that exists on all levels of what builds a person, what makes you you, right? So if you can identify major problems in your life, such as the money thing for me, right? It didn't take long for me to say, God damn, dude, every single time I want to buy something, I have no money. Every single time it's bill time, I have no money. And I got to run and work extra hours and then real quick, try to avoid the late fees, and I'm running to the bank and I'm causing a headache for myself. Eventually I had to stop and think, what is going on? What is happening? Why is this such a problem? Why can I not figure this out? And, for me, it was money. For you, it may be something completely different. But identifying the problem, you're now one step closer to identifying the programming that keeps it a problem, right? The part of you that keeps that occurring, because all you are is a very complicated system. You have inputs and you have outputs, right? And something happens in the middle there that is not doing what you want it to do. And, obviously that comes from your inputs, but the machine is broken. The machine is not functioning at least the way that you would like it to be functioning. So if you can identify the problem, then for me especially, it helps to trace back where I inherited that problem. Okay, why am I bad at money? Why am I so poor with my finances at tracking, recording, and maintaining a watchful eye on my income? Well, I think back to my parents. I was never taught about money. I was never taught about how to manage finances. I was never taught healthy habits, and we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. So all of the things that I knew about finances were bad habits, pretty much, or anything that I could assume. Maybe they didn't directly teach me bad habits, but just in the environment that I grew up in, that is the reality that I knew to be reality, right? You have no money. That's it, And so I had to identify, okay, that's most likely where it came from. And then realizing that I'm, somewhat of an impulsive person by nature, and I pretty much always have been, and I'm particularly giving in times that maybe I shouldn't be, and I usually look out for others rather than myself, right? These are not, I guess at face value, these are good things, but when it comes to, bill time and I have no money because I bought my friend Cinnabon every day this week, that's not good. That's not good, right? You can't, if your cup is not full, you cannot pour it into someone else's, right? So that first step, identify the problem. Second step, for me anyways, I don't know that this is a necessary part of the process, but I'd say that it helps, is identifying where the problem came from, how it came about, and identifying past instances where that problem was reaffirmed. Okay? And then third step, find, organize, create, write some new programming that makes sense, isn't going to murder you, right, in terms of effort, because you want it to be something you can slowly build upon. You're not building Rome today, right? You're building the first blocks of the Colosseum, right? So identify first steps that you can take and then plug away at those. And then it's just a repetition game. And the longer you persist, the longer you persist, the longer that habit is going to last, and the better the odds that you don't hop back on the same train that you came off of, right? So this, again, these are kind of one and the same here, and that's the repetition is speaking directly to your subconscious. So, but being able to reverse engineer, I guess it's not even reverse engineering. Well, I guess it partially is. Whatever, not important. But being able to identify a problem that is reoccurring, right? Hey, I never have money for bills. Hey, I'm, always saying no to going out. Social issue. I obviously have some kind of fear there. Hey, I'm always getting fired from my jobs. Hey, I'm always losing my fucking keys, right? All of these are behaviors that cause issues. They cause problems. They are not great. They are something that adds stress into your day that is unnecessary, right? So even for the keys thing, I don't have this problem because, as I said, my memory is pretty amazing these days, so I can leave my keys wherever the hell, and almost every single time I remember where they are immediately, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of thought, and sometimes I'm walking around the house like a dumbass, sure, but most of the time, 99% of the time, I know exactly where they are. But not everyone is the same, right? So if, say, you constantly are losing your keys or your phone, then you identify the problem, you identify, if you think it is necessary, where that problem came from. My parents were always messy and losing their shit, and that's all I saw when I was growing up, right? And then identify what is something I can do. Oh, well, maybe I can, find a place to put my phone where I always know where it is. And then repetition, right? So it's creating a system to identify problems and solve them completely mathematically, right? And then if you, every single time I come in from work, hang my key up by the door, right? Or put it on the counter right when I walk in, right? I put it right on the arm of the couch. Who knows? You find a spot that works for you, and then you do that every single time. And then over time, it's going to be thoughtless. It'll be like breathing. You just walk in, you throw them right there. And then as soon as you go to look for your keys, you're like, oh yeah, I put them in the same spot every day. And then you pick them up, right? Problem eliminated. And the longer you stay with that, then the longer it's going to be, one less stressor that you have removed from your life. And the big part about both of these is removing a stressor. It is, we talk about this anxiety, this ambient anxiety that builds up from problems that exist. So the more of those that you reduce, the more mental space that you free up, right? And that makes you more clear, it makes you more lucid, it makes you, more of an optimized machine, right? And so the less that I'm worrying about where my fucking keys are, the more I can think about business and my future and my plans and how to be a better employee and how to make more money at work and how to, talk to that person that I want to talk to, or how to, improve my relationships. It can go wherever you want. If you think of mental capacity as dollars, a unit of currency, right? You only have so much. Now that so much can be expanded, of course, but it is widely held belief that you have a finite number of mental currency that you can reach, right? And so every single stressor that you have in your life, every problem that you are not tackling, takes a little bit of that currency away. So once you reduce those needless expenses, then now you have more currency within the system to spend on what you like. See? So, it works out pretty good. And I would say that the money thing for me has been the biggest one. I can't, off of the top of my head. Okay, cleanliness, actually, I would say too. I've always been messy. My room was always a complete shit heap, especially my car. My car has always been a total freaking landfill. Every single time, someone gets in, so you gotta throw that shit in the back. You gotta part all the cups in the back and the empty water bottles and the clothes and all that stuff, right? Just to sit down all the time. Literally, there was never a time when my car wasn't dirty. I'd clean it, and then 2 days later, it'd be the same stuff, right? Or I'd just move all the stuff to the trunk, and then my trunk would be the landfill. And then it would just build up in the car again, and now they're both full, right? And so that is something that I am much better at now, but I'm still in the beginning phases of rewriting that programming. So there are times when my car gets dirty, and I gotta go out there and clean it. But I try to maintain that every time I come in, I take any garbage that's with me out of the car, and I go to the gym and I take a layer off, and then I throw it in the back seat. As soon as I go in the house, I take it out with me, right? Rewriting the programming, and through repetition, it kind of sinks in. My car was kind of messy for a while, the last couple of weeks. Just cleaned it, and now we're trying to stick to the system again, right? So again, you will have times where you falter, right? But it's just hopping right back on, identifying that it's a problem, and continuing on, right? Right. More power to you. Wow. Pro tip, you want to feel a freaking blast of hydration? Sparkling water with lemon juice. Pretty simple. Get a good kick of vitamin C, and it's like, it's like coming out of a cold shower, man. It's amazing. Especially if you use something with bigger bubbles in it, like the old P-Dog over here, right? Not sponsored, obviously, but they could throw some money at me if they wanted. Something with bigger bubbles. Pellegrino is more of a soft sipper, so I wouldn't. It's not. You don't have the same lightning bolt effect that you get. But anyways, we will move on. Oh, Can't do it. Too itchy. New hat. But anywho, be aware. Moving on, obviously, be aware and conscious of where you experience the most resistance. I think I did bring this up in the last episode, but I'll further expand now. So the most resistance that you feel. So, meaning if there's some creative endeavor that you really want to do, but you have such a hard time pushing yourself to do it. Every time you just feel this anxiety, this, nervousness about it, even though you want to get better in this way, but you just can't quite push yourself to do it. I would say the places that you feel the most resistance is the places that you will grow the most from, right? And that's kind of what we're all about here. Getting better, stronger, faster, smarter, all these things, more optimized human being to lead us to the path of success. And identifying these resistant-rich activities and then just really pulling the trigger and going in and doing it regardless. For me, tying this in with anecdotal evidence, I would say that there have been periods in my life, I kind of fluctuate between super, outgoing, extroverted. Super extroverted, can talk to anybody, can have a great time, can really get down to person-to-person conversation in seconds to minutes, right? And then sometimes I'm the guy that I don't want to see another person. If there's a social gathering, I don't want to go. I want to stay in the cave. I want to be in here. I want to be by myself or with, the two people that I like to hang out with. And that can, persist for months, if sometimes it has. And I would say that I feel that resistance when I'm in that state of introvertedness to going out. Like, hey, do you want to go to the club? Absolutely freaking not. Absolutely not. Right? But I know that if I were to forego that emotion and just do it anyways, even if I had a bad time, I think that the action of me defying my emotional resistance grows you as a person. And I could probably extrapolate this and say something like, since you are the consciousness and not, the mind or the body, that you're showing both of those things, that the consciousness is in charge and therefore it gives you more power. Something like that, I'm sure, right? Whoop, put that bad boy back on, right? But, regardless, it's very true, because every single time there's been something that has scared me a ton and I've pulled the trigger anyways, I have, as soon as I get into it, been very grateful that I did, like joining football, like going to the gym, right? I was none of these things when I was young, and it was completely opposite to who I believed that I was, and yet it called to me, and I felt very nervous and very afraid to do it, but I did it anyways, and it changed me as a person for the better, for much better, absolutely. So, whereas, obviously going to get the mail, if I'm nervous to do that, then I don't think that it's going to grow me very much as a person. But like I talked about in the last one, dancing, singing, things like this, expressing myself in this nature are terrifying to me. Learning another language, specifically Spanish, for some reason, it's just, I have a giant hang up there. And I've allowed the resistance to keep me away from it for so long that it is now a mountain that seems insurmountable, but it's not. And I know that if I just were to go and do it and just kill that turkey right now, then it wouldn't be a big problem, and I would be better off for it. And I'd be, a more complete human being. I would have pushed my soul in a new corner of the massive box in which it resides, and learned a new facet of the human experience, right? It's kind of like the boat, man. Like, I talk about, I guess I haven't really gone on and on about the boat, but I'm buying a freaking boat, and I'm going to live on that motherfucker for an extended period of time, right? Minimum of 6 months to a year. Minimum. Now, I love boats. I love the water, and I've always wanted to have a boat since I can remember. However, this terrifies me. The ocean is by far probably, well, maybe not my biggest, it's probably my biggest freaking fear, man. It's there's everything that exists underneath the surface of that water is terrifying, and it wants to kill me. It wants to eat me in a violent way, and I can't breathe down there. I can't move very well down there, and some tiny percentage of the ocean is even explored, so we don't even know everything that's down there, man. And I want to go live out in the middle of that motherfucker. That sucks, dude. That sucks so bad, but I know it'll be so cool, and there'll be so many great experiences. And the resistance that I feel to doing it is no match, because it will be done. It will be done. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, when I think deeply about what it means to be able to live on the water, I'm going to have to be able to navigate. I'm going to have to know how to, because I'm buying a sailboat, so I'm going to have to know how to sail pretty expertly, right? Especially in storms and whatnot. I'm going to have to know what to do if there's a hole, or I'm going to have to know what to do if something breaks, or, how to plot a course, plot navigation, use the radio, anchor, set up a mooring ball, all of these things, right? And of course you can learn some along the way, but there's a certain proficiency that you have to be at before you can even embark on that journey. So that's scary. But then thinking about on the other side of that wall, that conscious wall that exists there, after I breach that, suddenly I am the person who can do these things. And it has just added on this big block of personality to myself, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the dream big, man. If you're pushing your dreams to crazy bounds and then you actually complete them, especially when everyone said that you can't. Sorry for the shake, man. I'm excited here. But it just adds a little bit more of achievement to your life that, doesn't make you better than anybody or anything like that, but it definitely makes you better than you were the day before, right? And that's what we're all about here, man. Personal improvement, boy, right? So, to recap that one, be aware of the barricades that are in your mind that create this walking through honey-like resistance of completing a task or engaging in activity, right? And then double down on those and go harder. Like, for example, I have all this built up anxiety about dancing, whereas if I just booked a weekend course and did it, I would probably be completely over it, right? Even though I'm not a pro freaking dancer now, I have engaged in the activity, I have defeated that fear, and now I am something different, and I can build on top of that, right? So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to become the best at the thing you are afraid of, or do it all the time, or make it part of yourself, but just, wage war on that fear. It's a battle. It's you versus fear. And if you let it win, then it's going to win. And then it's going to win the next time. And it's going to win the next time until you freaking ball up and actually, put your guns out. And the longer you delay it, the bigger that enemy force is going to be. So I would say, as soon as you feel that resistance, just tackle it right away, man. Just jump at it. That's my opinion anyways. Take it or leave it. Be scared your whole life. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. But it does make a difference to you. So just think about that one. Right. Cool. So to recap all of those things, before we get to our life hack and then my little closing message here. Oh, yeah, okay. So we have, through repetition, you speak directly to the subconscious, meaning you dig, right down into the nuts and bolts, right down into the wiring. If you are continuously repeating an action, it is training your mind to create a system that has that action taking place and the outcome of that action taking place without your thought, which is the goal, right? You don't want to consciously be breathing all the time. You don't necessarily want to consciously be going to the gym. You just want to wake up, right? Drink your water, grab your shake, go to the gym. You just want it to be second nature, because the less you have to think about it, then the less energy you're expending on it, and the more of that mental currency that you can spend on something that you want to spend it on, right? Cool. In the same vein, wherever you are struggling, wherever there is a problem in your life, a continuous problem that is continuously rearing its ugly head, just know that there is a program that exists within you, within your subconscious, within the wiring, within the nuts and bolts, that keeps it a problem, right? And the longer that you just think it's, oh, I'm just like this, you're not just like anything. You are a mold, a piece of Play-Doh that you can shape into whatever the fuck you want to do, man. There is no, it's just the way that I am. No, I'm just an angry drunk. No, you have freaking problems, dude, that you got to get under control, right? I'm just messy. No, bro, you are just freaking scatterbrain, and you have no attention span, and you can't focus on anything long enough to clean it, and you can't focus on anything to remember where you freaking put anything. That's why everything is all over the place, right? There is no I'm just like this. There are problems and there are not problems. And if there is a problem and it is consistently, popping up everywhere, then it is your job to fix it, right? And identifying that it is a problem is step one. Identifying where that program came from is optional step two, right? Step three, create a way out of that problem. Create a new path that is going to lead you to a better habit, right? And then step four, repetition, 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 repetition. Speak to that subconscious, man. Get down in that wiring, get into those freaking nuts and bolts, get into the deep code, right? And change what is the issue. And over time, it will be changed. And regardless of what a mountain it seems that you can't quite climb to the top and fix and get the sword out of the stone, it can be done. It can be done, and it will be done as long as you put in the effort, you put in the reps, dog. I promise you. I promise you. That is a Nick Balker guarantee right there, my boy. All right? And third one, be aware of and conscious of where you experience resistance, and be even more conscious of where you experience the most resistance to an activity, to a behavior, to music, to a genre of movies, right? And like I could even open that again to if every single time a rom-com comes on some chick flick and I'm overly emotional, notice that. Notice that there's a resistance there, an emotional wall that is for some reason put up against a specific genre of movies, right? If every time smooth jazz comes on the radio, you go, man, turn that shit off, right? Not for any particular reason, just because that's how you respond every time. Maybe there's something there. And maybe if you were to really chase that rabbit down the hole, you'd find some part of yourself sitting on the other side that you had no idea even existed. So check it out. Be aware of where you're feeling this barrier that you don't understand and don't know why it's there, and be able to ease your emotions down, sit back, and look at it for what it is. There is something controlling my behavior that's not me, right? Okay, well then let's chase that down. What the heck is going on? And then you pursue that and find something else. Find something else waiting for you, right? So that closes out our big three. So let's jump into the life hack. Using comedy to gain new perspective. This is something that I've been working on and kind of lost it. I was always big into comedy and obviously like in my circle of friends, it's always poking and prodding and making fun and making jokes and just nonstop laughing. But after I moved here and got into this survival mode of just trying to make it to the next day and make enough money to pay for my freaking ungodly expensive rent, and I lose a job and then she loses a job and then back and forth and all this stuff. Well, now I'm doing okay enough to be able to laugh, to have the free space in my mind to be able to laugh, and it's been kind of a journey that I didn't think I was going to have to consciously involve effort, but I really have had to work on it. And I would say that being able to see life and especially people through a lens of comedy really grants new perspective that isn't always there, and it frees you from this is real. Like Alan Watts talks about, we are all just actors in a play. I don't actually think that I think he was talking about that from Buddhism or something like that, but that's who I heard it from. We are all just actors in a play, right? The problem is that the play is so convincing that even the actors are convinced that they are in a play, or that it is real, that the play is reality. Sorry, I fucked that up a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a play. It's just a game. It's okay, right? So using comedy, I think, gives you the perspective again that it's okay. Like everything's fine. Laughter is good for you, obviously, right? And so I think that's my life hack is pursue comedy. Pursue comedy, even just joking around with your friends. Try to make funnier jokes. Try to make deeper jokes, more intellectual jokes, right? Try to find funny new takes on what's going on around you and how to make jokes about it. Now, the caveat here is do not overuse, right? So I follow a considerable number of comedians somewhat regularly, just as I've been getting more into understanding, good comedy. And I see things where there's just like bad behavior. Like somebody's like cheating on their wife, or somebody beats somebody up, or someone's too violent in the club, and they're just like, oh yeah, this guy's beating his girlfriend over here. And it's like, well, hold on, dude. Like, I think sometimes comedy goes a little too far, and it allows you to justify bad and weird behavior. Like the dude that just pulls his junk out at a party. That's weird, dude, right? Now, maybe in some context it's funny, but at the same time, like, you have to identify, it is like, you may have some issues going on if this is a consistent behavior of yours, right? So that's what I mean, don't overuse it. Don't justify things that don't need to be justified. And for me, this balance kind of comes from like making fun of things, but keeping the jokes sort of in front of my personal beliefs. Like, I can make fun of things that I don't necessarily believe in. I don't necessarily subscribe to that joke that I'm making personally, right? But it's funny nonetheless, right? Right. Some kind of distance that happens there. Cool. That's what we got. I will include this thing. I mentioned the book that I'm plugging away at slowly. I'll probably expand on this in a different video, but talking about prioritizing a number one. So this channel is, for me, numero uno right now. And the book is very exciting, and it's about something that I'm very passionate about, always have been super passionate about. I'm very excited to write it and get through it and develop it and create on this scale of which I've never created before. I've created on some pretty massive scales before, but nothing like this. Nothing to the extent of which I know I can take this. And yet, there will be time. And that time is not now. So I am not at all intentionally working on it, but when ideas come to me, I'll run in here and I'll scribble them down and I'll file them away in with all the rest of the notes. And then someday I'll put those pieces up and build the puzzle, but that is not now. And I think that's really important, to prioritize what is most important and sit everything else on the back burner. That doesn't mean don't ever visit it. That just means know where your priorities lie and know why they are your priorities, right? And then make a decision accordingly. That kind of fits into what would be in the big three, but we'll just keep it a little sweet tart at the end there. So that's all I got for today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys have a great, what's this coming out on, a Wednesday? Rest of your week and weekend, and I will see you again on Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. If you disagree, if you agree, it doesn't matter to me, man. It doesn't matter to me. Even if we end up freaking arguing in the comments, it's okay. We are all people, man. And I just want to bounce ideas back and forth. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But tell me why both ways. And we can talk it out, right? And you can talk amongst yourselves. So, that's the kind of community that we want here. So, thanks again. Appreciate you. And Nick out.